So my therapist literally ghosted me, and this is not even the first time that this has happened. This has happened to me multiple times. Therapists not responding to attempts to make appointments, not actually delivering on follow-up appointments, or if I get therapy from someplace that isn't the internet, like a actual firm that I physically go to, the therapist will tell me either that I'm too difficult to deal with, or that they're literally not qualified to help me. I've had this happen multiple times, even when I'm making substantial progress in therapy, because I feel like with almost every therapist I've had, I've been able to improve, at least on the margins, but with certain ones, like substantially. For example, with this last therapist I've had, which literally ghosted me, I was able to take the CBT that they did on me and actually internalize it in regards to my schoolwork. They told me to see failing in school like the way that I see dying in Dark Souls, because I've died in Dark Souls literally thousands of times, and I was able to, once it was put in those words, think of failing in school literally the same way. And all of a sudden, it was like my fear of failure dissipated when I actually tried to do the work while thinking of it in that way. Because what do you do in Dark Souls? You have to get good. That's the reason why I can race a game like Crash Bandicoot 3, which is very hard for some, in literally 2 hours. I can beat that game in 2 hours, and with like 30 lives to spare by the end of it, because I'm just that good at the game. I've just died that many times and memorized the entire thing. So I can do this with video games. There's no reason I can't do it with school. As a kid, I didn't understand that. I hadn't made that connection until now, literally as an adult. And so that was immensely helpful for me. I think as a kid as well, I simply did not have the motivation. I didn't understand why getting school done was important in the first place. I think I did to some extent, but it was primarily out of fear. Like, I don't want to be homeless in the future and not be able to have a job, so I should get this work done. And that fear wasn't very motivating for me. It was more so debilitating for me. I would get so scared that I'd just get paralyzed and couldn't do anything. And then I would spend the rest of the school hours just wanting to kill myself. And then I get a little bit older into adulthood, and I don't know how to do even the most basic things because I spent all of my school years either goofing off or cheating or not doing it and being suicidally depressed the entire time or debilitated by anxiety. I get to adulthood and then I think, well, I'm just gonna fail at this anyway. I'm just stupid. It's impossible for me. I can't do it. A couple more years go by into adulthood. I start actually developing more confidence in myself and seeing myself as someone who is competent, where if I'm competent in all these other different areas, like being able to emotionally support vulnerable people, I seem to be very good at reframing their issues and explaining them. I seem to be very good at writing. I seem to be very good at verbal communication in general, but that isn't limited to writing. It's also limited to things like poetry and music. I've made this YouTube channel for a very long time. If I can put so much effort into all this stuff, it stands to reason that I can put effort into doing something as simple as getting my GED by going all the way back and doing the subjects from the very beginning to get the fundamentals down. That much is possible when I've been able to do all this. It's just common sense. I didn't seem to understand that until fairly recently, and I think that's because I didn't have confidence in myself until fairly recently. The final hurdle that I needed to get over was that notion that failure is something to be feared. Failure is not something to be feared, it's to be embraced, and you can hear that as a slogan however many times you want, but actually internalizing it is the difficult part. I was given an example that allowed me to internalize it for myself and then apply it in practical terms, apply the knowledge in practical terms, and that's led to results. I am not debilitated by anxiety when I'm doing my work. I'm getting my work done, and I'm doing my work better than I've ever been able to. And I can say that, in a sense, Dark Souls changed my entire life. I mean, the whole course of my life has been altered because of this analogy, and that was with help from that therapist. So it's crazy the work that he was able to do on me, but it's not limited to that. He was able to provide me some essential knowledge as to why I have or have had problems with ego in the past or insecurity, and just various like different behavioral stuff that I don't want to go through everything at this particular moment, but there was so much insight that he was able to give me that I feel like has genuinely improved me as a person. And then I just get ghosted, you know? I open up more about like the extent to which I'm kind of fucked as a person. I didn't put it like that because I genuinely don't believe I'm fucked for the rest of my life, but I just went through so many of the different things that have happened in regards to incest and rape and molestation and physical abuse and verbal abuse and the multiple hospitalizations, the multiple suicide attempts, the immense difficulty with sleeping. You go into all this stuff, and it seems like a lot of clinicians just don't want to deal with you. They just decide, okay, this is too much work for me. Even if I like this person, this is too much work. I'm not getting paid enough for this. The next person can deal with this. And it's sad. I mean, it's honestly kind of sad. Like, it used to make me feel like I was completely on my own in the world every time this would happen, because I would come into it with optimism. It's not like I would come in just doomer posting the whole time. Oh, it's never gonna get better for me. I'm never gonna do well. No, I would work really hard in therapy. Every time I've had therapy, I've worked really hard. And I've tried to see it in a positive way because I genuinely want to change. I genuinely want to be a better person. And you go through all of that, and then the person that you're working with is just like, this is too much. You know, I came into this to help people, but there's too much helping that I need to do here. It kind of sucks, but I can keep shopping around. I can keep looking for different people. Maybe this is a geographic thing or an economic thing. Like maybe if I lived in a better area and had more money, I could get a more qualified individual or something to work with me. Whatever it is, it's something. And it's not nothing. But the thing that the thing that I do know that it's not is I know it's not over. Just because stuff like this happens doesn't mean you're given a reason to give up. I have no reason to give up. In fact, I could have figured out some of the stuff that he told me. A lot of the insight that I've had into myself has just come from trial and error and introspecting on that trial and error. So if I continue to apply the things that I've learned from him, and if I continue on the search for more clinicians to work with, and as well as continue trial and error and introspecting on said trial and error, I think I have a pretty good chance. I think I have a pretty damn good chance. So I'm gonna take the L on this one. I'm not gonna treat it like this big thing, because that's where a lot of people go wrong. Something like this happens to them and then they let it devastate them because of the power dynamic. A doctor has an immense amount of power in comparison to you because they're a doctor, they have a degree, and they're in this position where they're meant to help you. You seek them out in order to get help from them. And when they decide that they don't want to help you, it can be devastating for some. But you can't let it be devastating for you. It just means that that individual was not the right one for you. And it takes quite a while to find the right one. That doesn't mean that you ought to give up. And that doesn't mean I ought to give up. So I've made progress because of my effort in therapy and because of the person I was working with. It seems as though I need to look for another person to work with now because they just don't respond. They don't seem to be interested in making a future appointment with me, in spite of the fact that I've continuously paid them. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. I mean, it sucks. It is what it is, but again, you can't let it devastate you. You have to understand that the progress that's been made is still good. Progress is progress. Things are still going up. And if you let these individual moments devastate you, you could throw all that progress away. But if you really want to live a better life, you're not going to do that. You're going to take the progress that you've made and build on it through other means. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in light of these circumstances. Because, look, I've been able to consistently work on my schoolwork every single day now. I've cut out distractions, I have been able to focus, I'm enjoying my work, and by the end of this, when I have that certificate, my life is going to be a hell of a lot better because I'll be able to move on to bigger and better things. This is step one. That's the progress I've made.